Hi, Gabriel. How are you?
Doing well. How about you, Nancy?
I am doing fantastic.
Awesome. Good to hear.
Why the heck not? So, as we come to this section of or segment of Making Sense with Gabriel, let's just go into what are the most common nutrient deficiencies that you see in vegan clients and how can we prevent them?
Great question. So I think first off the bat, we want to look at B12. B12 is probably the one of the most important, significant, prevalent things, and it can take a while to develop B12 deficiency. And so some vegans can think either because they're unaware or because they've read something online from some influencer on Instagram or YouTube or whatever it might be. They heard from someone who looked great online. They looked healthy, they looked fit, they looked energetic, and they said, oh, you can do this, you can do that. You don't really need to supplement with B12. But coming from a health professional like me, a registered dietitian, of course, who's, wants to use evidence-based information in any recommendations that I might make or that other registered dietitians, hopefully, nutrition professionals might make, it's that if you're living a plant exclusive or a vegan lifestyle, it's essential, absolutely paramount, important for vegans to supplement with B12. There's some chance that you can rely on fortified foods if you're consuming them every single day and multiple times a day. So in some of the plant-based meats and some forms of nutritional yeast, I think it's Red Star nutritional yeast, and there may be other brands, but that's a popular brand that's common.
Trader Joe's also.
Yeah, they'll fortify nutritional yeast, but again, never trust that nutritional yeast or any product's going to have B12. It's important that people actually check the package. And so if you're utilizing fortified foods, but it's like if you're going to rely on those, I think at the very least, you're going to need to be consuming them multiple times a day so that your body's consistently getting exposed, right? The gut is consistently getting access to that B12. And then it's able to absorb it and utilize it, make it bioavailable, meaning we're able to actually absorb it and utilize it in our body. There's some chance you can get away with not supplementing, so taking a B12 supplement. But I always say, hey, it's not terribly expensive. It can be relatively super cheap, in fact, to just take a B12 supplement, because then you're going to guarantee, kind of like an insurance policy, you're going to guarantee that you get what you need with the supplement, because you can just take it every day. Or there's certain dosages where if you're taking like 1,000 milligrams or something, or no, sorry, micrograms, I believe, 1,000 micrograms of B12, you can take it like every other day or every 3 days. I can't remember off the top of my head, so don't quote me, but it's like, we only need a very small amount per day, but most supplements aren't going to just give you the 250 micrograms or whatever. And even that's probably more than you need per day. But because B12 is one of those water-soluble vitamins, the kidneys are just going to filter out whatever we don't need. So we don't have to worry too much about excess B12 in our diet. But that being said, we don't want people taking thousands upon thousands of micrograms of this stuff, because there's no reason to take more than what's just in already your multivitamin that you're taking or your normal B12 supplement. Just take what's recommended on the bottle or, whatever it is, and don't exceed that. Unless in partnership with a medical professional, with the primary care physician or something like that, you're getting a recommendation to exceed some normal dosage that you're going to get on, your daily multivitamin or whatever you might take. So B12, crucial. And if somebody's going to rely on fortified foods because for whatever reason they don't want to take a supplement of B12, then again, it's important that we see the doctor regularly. I know this is an important health equity issue. Some people don't have access to health insurance. There's very good reasons for that. And so they might not be able to see a doctor, a primary care physician on an annual basis. But for the people that have access to medical care, consistent medical care, it's like, hey, it just makes good sense. Try to get an annual checkup and try to get annual blood work, because that's just the general benchmark or baseline that we can set. It's like, if we're getting our annual blood work done, always ask them to make sure. It should be part of a routine blood thing, but that you want to make sure, especially as a vegan, that they're getting a test to make sure, there's tests for this, right? In our blood work that can show whether or not our B12 status is what it should be. So very important for vegans. Get your annual blood work and then make sure your levels are what they're supposed to be, so that we know, right? So that we get some good hard data on whether or not our status is what it should be. In addition to B12, there are some other things that we don't necessarily have to supplement as vegans, but I always think of it again as an insurance policy. So D3, this is universal, right? So omnivores, vegans, paleo, whoever you might be, many of us in modern society can fall short in vitamin D3 levels. And so I take this supplement. I have no relationship to this company, called Complement. And Complement has their Essential Plus or something like that. And it has some of the heavy hitters that can be important for vegans to take. And so, of course, B12, number one. D3 is also included in there, vitamin D3, because many people run low in vitamin D, and that's a critical nutrient. Cancer prevention, bone health is a big one. Vitamin D has a lot to do with absorption of calcium and that whole cycle in the body to make sure that we're absorbing and reabsorbing calcium and we have what we need to maintain bone integrity. And so D3 essential. And then this one, not everybody needs to take, but I think it's another insurance policy, is EPA and DHA. And those are the long chain forms of the omega-3 fatty acids that we can get in foods like flax, hemp, chia. Those are like your heaviest hitters in the plant kingdom. But then you're also going to get some in a variety of other nuts and seeds. Walnuts are the big one among the nuts that are really high in the omega-3 fatty acids, the omega-3 precursors, because again, we take the precursors, which are things like ALA, alpha linolenic acid. We have to confirm that short chain omega-3. Our body converts it into the long active forms of omega-3, EPA and DHA, that are very important for brain and cardiovascular health long term. And so I think those are important for me, based on what I've seen in the data. I think it's a good idea to take the already active forms of the long chain omega-3s, which are EPA and DHA. And as vegans, we can get those in the form of not fish oil, because we don't want to take fish oil if you're following a vegan lifestyle. But there are companies like Complement who use algae, right? The fish, the reason they eat the algae, and that's the reason that they get the omega-3s. And so why use fish to get your omega-3s when you can get it straight from the source? And those are the algal sources of EPA and DHA. And so that's what you get in Complement. And then in addition to those three, B12, D3, EPA and DHA, long chain form omega-3 fatty acids. You have a few other nutrients that are like, again, you can get them on a well-planned vegan diet, but in our modern food system, but depending on where food is grown and what the quality of the soil is, and how nutrient dense that soil is, iodine is another big one, right? Depending on where you live, what your soil is like, it's where your food is grown, etc. We get various levels of iodine. Iodine's a very important nutrient that we need, and so it's like, beyond a question, beyond a shadow of a doubt, we need to make sure you get iodine, of course, in your sea vegetables. So if you're consistently consuming some sea vegetables, you're going to get some iodine. But if you want to take out an insurance policy and guarantee you're just getting that baseline good amount to maintain your long-term health, then iodine's great to supplement. It happens to be in Complement as well. Complement's just kind of a catch-all for some of these heavy hitters that we want to be focused on if we're following plant-based diets. It also has selenium. And so that's just another one of our micronutrients. Minerals, of course. Iodine and selenium are minerals. And so selenium is another important one to think about. So iodine is another one to consider. And then, of course, selenium. Selenium's another one of our micronutrients, another one of our minerals like iodine that we need to make sure we're getting enough of on a vegan diet. It happens to be in this multi that I take called Complement, Essential Plus or something like that in Complement. And the heavy hitter for selenium in the plant kingdom are Brazil nuts. So if people are just eating a few Brazil nuts, you don't even have to eat them every single day, but just a few Brazil nuts here and there, right, on a consistent basis, every few days, every week or so, you're going to make sure you're getting enough selenium. But if you don't want to worry about it, or you don't like Brazil nuts because you think they taste like dirt or whatever, then make sure that we just need to make sure that we're getting selenium into our diet, or including it in a supplement like Complement, which happens to cover it. What else is in Complement? Because Complement's just a company who's taken some of the things that we don't always get enough of on a plant-based diet unless we're planning it carefully enough. And they threw it into this daily multivitamin, multi-mineral, etc., to make sure we're getting enough. It also has K2. K2, I don't think is something that's a heavy hitter that we need to worry especially about, but they happen to throw K2 in there. And then iodine, selenium, the other three. I think there's one more that I'm forgetting off the top of my head. And I'm going to have to Google it real quick because I just don't have all this stuff memorized all the time because I don't talk about it every single day.
So B12, D3, selenium, iodine, and the other one was omegas thus far.
Oh, zinc and magnesium are the only other two. So yeah, zinc is another one. Zinc you're going to get from a bunch of different plants. I don't have them all memorized off the top of my head. But in our modern world, people can just Google, hey, what plant foods are high in zinc? And it's going to come up with a bunch of foods. And you can just make sure to prioritize some of those foods. But it includes some zinc, because zinc's another one that it's not like a red alarm, red alert kind of a thing, as much as like B12 is. But it's still something that we want to focus on if we're following a plant-based diet. And then magnesium is just another one that we want to make sure we're getting enough of. And this particular multi that I take, that again, I have no relationship to the company. I just take it because they've got a lot of independent testing. It's very high quality. It's completely vegan and cruelty free. And it's a great way to make sure that you're getting enough of the things that you may not get enough of unless you're going out of your way to really focus on bringing them into your planning in your weekly or your daily routine on a plant-based diet.
Okay, well, let's just name them again. D3, B12, omegas.
Yes.
Zinc, magnesium.
Selenium, iodine.
Selenium, iodine. Is that all?
Those are the big ones.
Those are the big ones. So now you know what we need to just look out for to make sure that we don't fall into these deficiencies. And again, just, we're talking about vegans, but obviously, like D3 and the other ones, it also applies for anybody.
Yeah, and overall, we want to diversify diet to the extent to which you can afford it and you have access to it. Lots of color, lots of variety. So it's like, I'm not going to just eat pinto beans every day. Instead, I'm going to try to eat lots of different kinds and colors of beans and the other forms of legumes like lentils and split peas and all these different things. And I'm going to do the same thing with whole grains and the same thing with nuts and the same thing with seeds and herbs and spices. And, bring in fungus because all of our different mushrooms are wonderfully beneficial for our health. And the degree to which we can eat a wonderful diversity and cornucopia of these different foods, we know that every different food that brings with it different colors and different types of fiber, they're going to literally bathe our gut with different types of nutrients that our bodies can absorb and can utilize in ways to support our long-term health.
Awesome. And like you said, again, it doesn't have to be all of them every day, but just in the course of the week, just mix it up. Have a party.
Yeah. And then it's like, hey, it keeps things from getting boring. Because I'm not going to just eat walnut. Even if I love walnuts, I'm not going to just eat walnuts every single day when I've got pecans and macadamias and pistachios and almonds and cashews and pine nuts, right? All these different wonderful nuts. And so what I do is like on your oatmeal, great way to throw, or a breakfast grain. I don't eat oatmeal, but I eat quinoa or brown rice or different forms of grains, teff, whatever it might be. Throw a different type of nut on there, throw a different type of seed, because not only does it make, from a culinary perspective, it makes it more exciting because you get to look forward to slightly different flavors and different crunch and different texture, but then you're doing your body wonders by bringing all these different nutrients as you're mixing it up throughout the week, throughout the month, etc.
So that's wonderful. Thank you again, Gabriel, for another wonderful segment of Making Sense with Gabriel.
My pleasure.